Ohai. Bagamoyo. The city in Tanzania is a part of the Vani area, the center of the area of the same name. Bagamoyo was the center of trade in ivory and slaves, and in 1889-1891 the capital of the German East Africa. According to the program of decentralization adopted in Tanzania, the city is operated not by own municipal council, but committee of regional council by means of local administrators. Since 2006, Bagamoyo is the candidate for inclusion in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List as the terminal point of the Way of Rabbit the caravans beginning in Udzidi at the Lake Tanganyika. Geography. The city of Bagamoyo is located in 75 km to the northwest of the largest city of Tanzania of Dar es Salaam on the coast of the Indian Ocean near the island of Zanzibar. Bagamoyo is the administrative center of the area of the same name where, except him, there are 9 more villages, and in 2012 about 312,000 people lived in total. The region of Bagamoyo is the part of the Vani area. It's a near Bagamoyo watermill cobalt mill that interferes with acceptance of heavy tonnage vessels and served as one of basic reasons of transfer of the capital of the German East Africa and having the deep water harbor Dar es Salaam in 1891. At the beginning of the second decade of the 21st century, the government of Tanzania made the decision on construction near Bagamoyo of new ocean port, which shall come to the end in 2017 and will cost $10 billion. Rated handling capacity of new port: 20 million containers a year. By 25 times exceeds port capacity of Dar es Salaam. At the same time with construction of port, construction of railroad spurs which will connect Bagamoyo to Mlandizi, satellite town of Dar es Salaam, and the Tanzanian-Zambian Railroad is planned. So far Bagamoyo is connected with Dar es Salaam, the high-speed motorway allowing to reach from one city another less than 40 hours. Bagamoyo's climate tropical, average annual temperature -26.6 C. Annual rainfall -10-15. Rains are much more frequent in the summer than in the winter. To the middle of the 18th century, Bagamoyo was the small settlement where trade in fish, salt and gum was performed. Bagamoyo's population consisted generally of fishermen and farmers. The economic role of Bagamoyo sharply grew when the Arab dealers in the region elected him as the terminal point of the trade way on which there were caravans of slaves. This 1,200-kilometer way from Udzidi near the Lake Tanganyika began. The slaves arriving in Bagamoyo then were transported by the ships to Zanzibar. Unofficial, the name Bagamoyo conducts the origin with these times. The words Bagamoyo can be translated from Swahili as leave the heart, that is treated how the address to the slaves forever leaving the homeland. Other possible translation, give yourself rest, it is presumably connected with the fact that the porters going with the caravan got rid of the 20-kilogram freight here. In the second half of the 19th century, the resident population of Bagamoyo reached thousands of people and generally consisted of natives and also many Arabs and Indians. The big community of Ismailis lived in the city. 137 people by 1870. By this time here the first in East Africa mission based by Brotherhood of the Holy Spirit in 1868 worked. The European researchers, many of which began to visit the city, including Livingston, Speke, Richard Burton, James Grant and Stanley, began to way deep into of the African continent from here.
In the 1880th years, after the ban on the slave trade and organizations of the German East Africa of Bagamoyo, the main shopping center of the region at the time, became the capital of new colony. But in 2 years the shallow port ceased to satisfy the colonial authorities, and the capital was transferred to having more comfortable harbor Dar es Salaam. Germans left behind good roads, the certain similarity of city planning and the region's first modern hospital, but proximity to the new capital played the dirty trick with Bagamoyo. Economic growth of the city came to naught. In 1929 Bagamoyo received from the new mother country, Great Britain, the status of the city, and in 1961, after obtaining independence by Tanganyika, the status of the district center. In the 80th years the city became one of places where new reform of local government of devolution through decentralization was approved. As a result in Bagamoyo there is no own city council, and the Committee of Regional Council manages the city. After transfer of the capital to Dar es Salaam, Bagamoyo's economy endured the long period of stagnation. The population was engaged in traditional crafts, such as fishing and agriculture. At the same time valuable cultures in these parts were not grown up and the harvest went on needs of inhabitants. This situation began to change in the 1990s.
With laying of the qualitative highway reducing time of the way between Dar es Salaam and Bagamoyo, the last became more attractive both to tourists and to the wealthy capital inhabitants who began to get in at the real estate. At the accelerated rates, however, also blighted areas which population by the end of the first decade of the new century made 65% of the general urban population of the area began to grow.
Bagamoyo is the center of construction of sailing fishing vessels.
Fishery remains one of primary branches of economy of Bagamoyo.
Most of country people is engaged in fishing, production of shrimps and crabs. All in the area there are about 650 small-scale fishing enterprises, and the number of the licensed fishermen grew up from 800 to 1.9 thousand between 1988 and 2004.
However, already to the middle of the 90th years the picture of exhaustion of sea fauna began to appear that is probably connected with the beginning of catching by trawls in 2 decades before. The average catch of one fisherman in 2 decades was reduced 3 times, from 75k a day in 1985 to 25k in 2004. In parallel with fishery, the sea crop production develops in Bagamoyo. Collecting of wild-growing seaweed of types of Euchumus spinosum and Capophycus striatum serving as raw materials for production of carrageenan is conducted from 1950th years, and from 80th years their cultivation began.
The tourist industry began to develop in Bagamoyo since 1993 when here the first hotel was constructed, and the flow of tourists increased with the end of construction Dar es Salaam-Skogo Highway in 2003.
In 2005 the nearby Warren of Sadani received the status of National Park, and in 2006 Bagamoyo was included in the application of Tanzania in UNESCO about assignment of the status of the World Heritage Site to the old way of rabbit orderly caravans.
Though illegal, branch of economy of the area cutting of mangrove groves with the subsequent export of wood and charcoal is profitable. Mangrove in Tanzania are under protection of the law since 1898, but the injurious deforestation leading to the erosion of soils continues. Significant changes in structure of economy of Bagamoyo are expected with the completion of construction of modern ocean port planned for 2017. The port, calculated on acceptance of 20 million containers a year, will become the largest in Tanzania and will turn the city into the important transport hub. Culture. Near Bagamoyo, 110 elementary schools. Within the National Program of Development of Primary Education in the area, more than 200 new classrooms were built, and the number of the children who are signed up in elementary schools, in the late 90s and the beginning of the odd years, annually increased by tens of percent.
In 1980 in the city, the College of Arts Bagamoyo, who is not only educational, but also research establishment and containing theatrical and ballet troupes, was open.
Enrollment in college is limited only by citizens of Tanzania, but even from among about 500 Tanzanians who are annually submitting documents for acceptance, are allowed only to take examinations 80, from which the few become students only. With an increase in attractiveness of Bagamoyo for tourists, hard work on preservation and restoration of architectural monuments of the colonial era is conducted. Since the beginning of the 80th years, the annual International Festival of Arts is held. Festival duration, 1 week in a year. It involves contractors from various countries of Africa and Europe. The main site of the festival, the amphitheater, calculated on 2,000 viewers. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.